Okay, share once people live.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Your girls are in the house again. It's another week. We're here to gist about trending issues that have been out there on social media. What are the things that we can pick out of those stories that are real stories that have happened to real people in real time? And what valuable lessons, as always, can we learn from this so that we can be better people with everything that we do? Okay, so this is why we're here. And I have my sister Ekuamwa in the house, as always. Ekuamwa, you're muted. I don't know why, but you are. And
I had to mute myself because I
there
was
you
trying to share on Facebook.
go. Okay. So my sister is in the house and we're here to gist about trending issues. There's one particular story that has made headlines this week, and there's been a lot of commentary about it. If you're not in the Ghanaian circles, you probably haven't heard it. And I'll give a gist of the story here. I've already talked about it here, but I wanted to hear what my sister had to say because there's so many facets and dimensions to what has happened. And as always, valuable lessons to be learned. The story is very simple. There's a couple, there's a man who wins the American lottery and moves to America to in quest, as all of us have done, myself included, Ikuamwa included, to seek greener pastures in the diaspora. He's won the green card, he's gone. He remembers that there's this woman that he's with in a romantic manner and goes back to his home country, being Ghana, and brings the woman to join him in America. They're married, they have 4 children. The children are grown. The oldest one is known to be in college, and they have a young child who is not a teenager as yet. But then the woman's mom also comes to live with them for a time. She gets unwell, and the decision is made that she's sent back home to Ghana to recover. So the woman sends her mom back to Ghana to recover. Unfortunately, the mom loses her life, and the funeral is done and everything. After all of this, though, the woman, uh, her relationship with her husband is faced with a lot of challenges. She says that she's going back to rekindle her romantic relationship with her ex-boyfriend, and that they've had some kind of talks. There's even a remarriage, and that she wasn't interested in the husband anymore. He should just accept it as what's happened. Start to see her as his sister, and they can live happily ever after. Now, she's going to also go back to Ghana and bring this boyfriend that she's now purporting to be married to back from Africa to live in America with her and her children. The husband thought he'd been cheated out of everything. He sacrificed everything for the marriage. He's given up his whole life in devotion to the marriage. And if this is the way that this woman is going to pay him back, then he's not going to be the one that uh, set somebody up into a better destiny, future success, prosperity, financial, whatever. And then for somebody else to reap the fruits of his hard labor. So, tooth for tooth, eye for eye, he strikes the woman in the brain, and with the intention of not making her live anymore, and then turns the same weapon on his own self and takes his life. Before he does this, there's a whole audio recording about his will. And in the will, very exciting things were happening. Interesting things. I wouldn't say exciting. Interesting things were said in this will. The things that he had in terms of possessions were being willed to his family back home in Ghana, his sister, his niece, his extended family. I didn't hear anywhere in the will where he was talking about his treasures in America, what he has as his own treasure or his own belongings in America, that he was even divvying up to his children, the 4 children that he'd had with this woman. No matter of whatever his issues were with the woman, these children are still his children as well. But in his will, there was no mention of the children. There was nothing willed to the children. It was all going to his extended family, and it was all assets that he had back home in Africa. Now, there's so many facets to this story. I don't want to say anymore. I just want my sister to unmute herself and give us what she has. So, my sister, the floor is yours.
Yes, Sika, before we go on, I just want to, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us. Good afternoon, wherever you are. Good evening, good morning. We just want to thank you guys for joining us every Sunday. And before we go on, please share. If you have not subscribed to Sika's Educate YouTube page, please take this opportunity and quickly go and click and subscribe to Sika Educate's YouTube channel. We want to have an exciting discussion. I've also taken the liberty of sharing the link to the story so that everybody can follow along and go and read about the story that happened in Columbus, Ohio. One of the main things that I really want us to talk about is DV, right?
Yes.
And when we talk about DV, most of the time, most people always wait to the last minute.
Yes.
And I believe that our sister probably, or our brother, I mean, wherever they are, we are praying for her speedy recovery. And we also pray for God's mercy on our brother's soul. But DV is very, very crucial. It's something that, most of the time when women are going through DV, right? They always say, oh, I'm staying because of the children. Right now, who is going to take care of those 4 children? Those children that she stayed and endured, that our society, I'm sure there were people who were cheering her along and saying, oh, stay, this is how marriage is, this is how everything is, and then encourage her to stay. But now she stayed for what? What did she stay for? Right? Women out there, we need to learn to think about ourselves and put ourselves first sometimes, right? We need to think about how we want to progress in this life, how we're going to protect ourselves. Because if you listen to the audio, right, I'm sure she said something to him that made him feel very unpleasant, right? Or as he claimed that she said whatever she said to him. But if you're a woman and you're listening to us, if you want to leave your home and you know that the person that you are in the relationship with, whether you're married, you're common law, or you are just, dating, if you know that you are already going through DV, you have to flee. And when you are fleeing, you don't flee closer. You flee far away, where the person cannot track you, where the person cannot reach you, where the person cannot no longer do harm to you. Don't stay along and don't stray along. Don't tease the person. Don't open up the opportunity for the person to finish you off completely. Remember, it always starts with a slap. Then after the slap, then punching. After the punching, demeaning. After the demeaning, then eventually they start threatening your life, right? That you're not going to go anywhere. They start making you feel like if anything happens, if you even make an attempt to escape, they're going to do something bad to you. And you, instead of taking it lightly, please don't. Some of us, we need to start getting restraining orders. Some of us, we probably need to go and really sit down with someone, a counselor, and really help us deal with some of these issues. Because now we have 4 children, who do not have a mother, who do not have a father, who also now have to witness the demise of their parents. Traumatized children. How do you recover from such trauma? And I heard that one of the children, the youngest one, is just 8 years old.
Yes.
8 years old. She has a long life ahead of her, but then she has to witness it. Did it have to happen this way? Right? And that's a question that we want to ask ourselves. We want to ask our communities, right? As immigrants in the diaspora, what is not working? How are we contributing to such behavior? Right? Yes, he went and brought her abroad, but does it mean that he owns her life? Right? And does it also mean that because of that, she has to end up that way, or it has to end up that way for the entire family? Because you know what, at the end of the day, those kids, it's only going to take the grace of God for those kids to be able to recover from this, right? So DV, those in the faith community, let us talk about it, right? If we need to, some of us we need to talk about anger management, right? We need to talk about how we maintain ourselves and our emotions, right? Earlier on this year, we talked about emotional intelligence, right? Knowing what to say at what time, right? And doing how you communicate, because communication is very key, right? Because if you listen to the tape, he said, because what she said to me this morning, I was not even able to go to work. So what did she say to him? Right? And how did it lead to this point? Right? So we don't want to use the real word, because YouTube and Facebook will start censoring it, right? So if you want to know the full meaning of DV, Sika has put it in the comment section, right? But this is something that we need to talk about. We always need to talk about it, because if we don't talk about it, there are many women, many men who are living in bondage, who are who are going to, silently, they are withering away because we are not talking about these issues enough, right? And at what point do we think enough is enough, right? So it's important that we understand this is a reality of life. These are things that are happening around us. Our children are looking at us, they're witnessing it. When do we stop? Women, when do we have the boundaries? When do we build the courage to pick up and say that it's better that I'm alive to take care of my children than for me to be 6 feet under and my children be left with no mother and no father? Sika, I will pause here for you to interject.
Thank you so much, darling, for what you said. There's a lot of truth in that. Now, yesterday I've spent quite a bit of time researching this issue because there's so many facets to it. I've listened to so many commentaries online because it looks like there's some people who actually know this couple and have also said all kinds of things. Unfortunately, the two people who can make the story clear to us, one of them is 6 foot under, the other person, only God knows where she's at right now. Now, the issue though here is this, is that we women, some of us women, sometimes we always allow the things that we think that we stand to get out of the marriage be the thing that drives us to make certain decisions about who we want to be with. I'm not saying that if you're dating somebody and you think that the person doesn't have good prospects, you don't have the right to leave. That's not what I'm saying. But when you listen to this story, because I think there's been an interview of this guy, this guy that is the cause of this whole thing. This guy. There was an interview of his that I saw yesterday online as well. And he's literally distancing himself from everything, saying that, oh, he only knew her at the very beginning when they dated and he didn't hear back from her again. And then they reconnected when the woman's mom died and he went to the funeral. And that was the first time he saw her again. And even after the funeral, he never saw her again, which doesn't kind of make sense in this whole thing. I don't know who is lying. I don't know who's telling the truth. I wasn't there, but we can only comment based on what has been put out there. I really want this woman to survive, to tell her story. I really do. Now, but having said that though, based on the facts that we have of this case, it's just a story of a woman who had been in a relationship with her boyfriend back in Ghana. I don't know at what point this poor man, who is now 6 foot under, met her. But somewhere along the line, she has a choice between a boyfriend that she clearly loves back in Ghana and this other guy who has the opportunity to travel and has now decided that I want you to be my wife. And she chose the latter because of what she thought she was going to get out of the marriage.
Jessica, one of the things that is really good that you brought this point out, right?
Yeah.
What I want to know is, did she really make that choice by herself? Or did she feel coerced to make that choice? Because we all know in our communities back home, if a burger comes, that wants to marry you, if you have a boyfriend, your family wants you to leave that boyfriend because now there's opportunity for you to travel abroad. So really, there's a lot of lessons. Because to be quite honest, this is actually remind me of a story someone shared with me. Okay, this person shared this story with me whereby she was introduced to a guy abroad, and her family wanted her to marry this guy. In the beginning, she agreed. When the guy came to marry her, she realized that the guy was acting funny. Okay? So what had happened was she said to me, the guy will, like when a guy, because she was in school. So when a guy will call, he'll be like, oh, I've been calling you. Where have you been? How come you're not picking up my call? Right? So you'll be doing like funny things,
Possessive.
Who are you talking to? Like, who are you talking to? Like,
possessiveness.
So he started doing all these funny things. And this, my friend, she's very smart. She's a very smart girl. Okay. So she said, and I guess one day he must have done something. He had come to Ghana, saw her, he did something. And she said, I know do him again. She said that I don't want to do it anymore. But you guess what? Her family was still insisting. They kept on begging her. They kept on doing everything. And then she was one of those people that, unfortunately, when the guy put it in, he got the papers came so fast. And when the paper came, she still said she didn't want to come. That she doesn't want to be with him. She doesn't want to marry him. They call family meetings upon family meetings upon family meetings upon family meetings. Until somehow they coerced her and convinced her to come. When she came, she still wouldn't want anything to do with the guy. Right? But it took bravery for her to make the decision that, you know what, I don't want to do anymore. And that's the decision she made, right? So these things do happen. And I wonder if she was in the same situation like my friend, where, family sometimes will coerce you to make decisions. We all see people, even like, because your family is not privileged, then they see some rich man that wants to marry you, you're not interested, but then they will coerce you into doing so, right? Because now you become the savior of their family, right? So was she in that situation? We don't know, but that could be possible.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so this is one of the lessons that we all have to learn, right? Because if, something sometimes we don't need to begin it, because in the end, that disconnect, the person was not willing to do it 100% in the first place. So now it's always going to be, this one, I'm only doing it because I had to do it, right? So it's important that we also take this lesson from it as parents, right? And also as women, right? And as, people in the society. We don't want to be pawning off our young girls. Some people call it black tax, right? When we see women, they go to Europe, they go and then they have to sell their bodies in order for their families to survive, or their families to think that they have means, right?
Yes.
These are some of the tragedies that comes as a result of some of these decisions that we impose on our girls, right? Our girl child, right? So it's important that we understand this aspect and how it plays in the role. That man has come abroad, he wants to marry you. You don't know this man, you don't even know what he's doing abroad, right? We don't even know whether this man even has a job, or this man even has, is not involved in any form of criminality, right? For all of these things, we are exposing our girls to every single day. And that's what it leads to what? It can lead to DV that can eventually lead to such disastrous end as this one has ended up in.
Brilliant. Correct. Now, let's go on the basis that whether it was the family pressure or not, let's put that to one side. The evidence we have is she married this man, she moved abroad, they had 4 children. Clearly, there was something that was driving her to not want this marriage anymore. And I can see why you're digging into that. I understand that completely. And I also know that when you're married to somebody that you're not in love with, or somebody that you have genuine feelings for, it is very difficult. I was having this conversation with my own mother yesterday. We were chatting about this very story. And she was telling me that it is bad enough being in a marriage and being married to somebody that is your childhood sweetheart, that you love so much, because this thing called marriage is hard work. So it is bad enough that you've met somebody, you're so smitten by them, you're in love with them, you want them, they're the best thing that happened to you. Is difficult to be with even somebody who you're calling your childhood sweetheart. Not to talk about being married to somebody that you never even loved in the first place. It doesn't look like she was in love with this man. He was a means to an end. He was a meal ticket. She even went ahead to have children with this man, but it still didn't matter. He's well enough. He will look after his children, so I won't struggle. So she married him and had the children. Now she's satisfied. She's in a comfortable place. She has a job. She has money. She's exposed to all the opportunities that the West offers. But she's not happy.
Nope.
She's not sharing this life with a man that she's in love with, so that they can live together in peace and harmony and enjoy the fruits of their labor. So she goes back home and is now trying to rekindle this relationship with this man that her heart yearned for many years later. But ask the question, so this man that your heart yearned for many years ago, that you have left behind 2 decades plus later, was he just sitting there waiting for you? Because this man says he also has his own children. Yesterday, he said it live. I watched his interview. He's also moved on with his life. He's going to have children with some other person or persons. So clearly, he wasn't sat there thinking about you and worrying about you. So the question is the cost worth all that you've put in order to now come to this end? Nobody is saying she had to stay. But even when you're breaking up with somebody, there is a way of doing it, because you're being sensitive and thinking about somebody and not wanting to do anything to break the person. I don't even understand how this woman thought that it was possible. This is emotions and blood we're talking about here. I don't know how she thought it was possible that she could go and live with this man in the same house and be telling him, "Oh, now we were sleeping together as husband and wife, but now let just see me as your sister. It's fine because me, I'm going home to go and bring this other man that I'm in love with abroad." In French, they'll say c'est pas possible. It's not possible, right? But she thought it was possible. If she really meant business about not wanting to pursue this marriage anymore, when she went back, she should have lived somewhere else, moved into her own apartment, ended this thing amicably. Even though breakups are always painful, one person is always going to be hurt and aggrieved, but you want to minimize that pain by not flaunting it in somebody's face and painting their whole face with it. It's almost as if you're smearing mud at them. Hey, look at me. I don't love you anymore, and stick your tongue out at them. Hey, guess what? I've met somebody else and I'm in love with them. You don't do that, right? So she should have never thought that it was possible that this man was going to understand that she's moved on with her heart. She loves somebody else and she wants to be with this somebody else. The other point too that I want us to address here, Kwamwa, is that when you think about it on the face of it, the conversation or the recording that this man left behind as a will in testament, so that when he passes on, this is how his assets are to be divvied up. I didn't hear him say anything about leaving any inheritance for his own children. That's very profound to me. It doesn't sound like this man had any assets in the America that he had struggled with for so many years to leave for his children. So the question is, where did all that money go? What was he spending all that money on? And I want to hear what you have to say, darling.
Okay, you know what? I don't think that, but you do know that most people don't invest in the abroad. They always invest back home. So really, for him, the only inheritance, and that should be spoken of from a lot of immigrants, especially African immigrants, the only treasure that he will have is that house that he was talking about that he had back home that he wanted his sisters to have, right? So with the kids, because this is actually a very common mentality for most African men that live in the diaspora, somehow they think that their kids are going to be taken care of by the government, or because their kids are in the abroad, they don't need anything. Like those children don't need anything because they are fortunate enough to be born abroad, so they'll figure their way out, right? And that's one of those things that is one of the biggest misconception out there that is really crippling our community, because and that also goes to the fact that he's an Akan man, right? And in Akan culture, children get inheritance from their mother's side, right? So, and obviously this guy has lineage to chieftaincy, right? Because he was a chief.
Yes.
Former chief. Now we
Yes.
found out.
Yes.
But and because of that, he's going to be very typical Ashanti man or typical Akan man, where your children are not your assets. Your children are not your heritage. Your nieces and nephews are your heritage, right? So those are the people that you leave your inheritance for. So for that part I think is mainly culturally related, and really tied into culture. He's not the only man. There's even learned men who are still behave that way.
Yes.
That think that their kids, because of culture reasons, will always want to help their family over their children. They don't think that their children are important, right? But the other thing I always say is that they also you grow up and find out that the people you are busy going after, they are busy taking care of their own children, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
your own children are going to take care of them, and then you have destroyed your own lineage, you destroy your own seed against you, right? And that's also another topic really for another day. But I think that's why he did that, right? But you know what? You just say something that is really, really critical that I want us all women and even men, all of us, the tongue is a very powerful thing,
Yes.
right? is a very, very powerful tool. It can make and unmake,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
What our sister did wrong was, if that's if it's true, based
Mm-hmm.
on the audio, that she
Mm-hmm.
did say that to him.
Mm-hmm.
If you already know you are in a relationship where there's DV,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also other alleges, based on some of the many audios I've listened to, that he started he started drinking a lot,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
So as women, whether you're a woman, you're a man, if you're in a relationship with somebody and a person started abusing substance, right? Most of the time, people don't see alcohol as a form of substance abuse. It is.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Think of it. Something that you inject into your body, then it can change the way you behave.
Mm-hmm.
That's substance, right?
Mm-hmm.
If somebody is taking excessiveness of it to
Mm-hmm.
the point whereby they start acting very funny and serious,
Mm-hmm.
then you already should establish in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I know in most of our culture, we don't see that as something that is very serious.
Yes.
It is serious,
Mm-hmm.
right? If
Mm-hmm.
somebody starts over drinking, they are struggling mentally with something,
Correct.
right? And
Yes.
that person needs help,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not a time for you to start criticizing the person, looking down on that person, right? Because I believe that when he was going through the situation where he started abusing alcohol, because you can use alcohol as a social tool, but when you start taking more, it becomes abuse, right? When he started abusing alcohol, right, our sister should have taking interest in getting, possibly bringing in help, right? And my fellow Africans who are listening to us, when we say bringing in help, it doesn't mean you should call family meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We are not calling uncle, auntie to come and sit down and have family meeting to discuss. And then after, when the family meeting is done, they all leave the house. And then my brother goes back and picks the bottle and continues drinking,
Yeah.
right? Or my sister picks the bottle and she continues drinking,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let's also take alcohol abuse as something that is significantly important that we need to deal with, right? Because that also happens. It really makes a DV situation very worse off, right? So it's important that we understand that aspect as well, right? And the next thing that we want to think about is that what at what point was he triggered? Because I think there was a lot of underlying issues, because somebody just cannot just get up one day and just like that. There
No.
has to be a lot of underlying issues.
Yeah.
There are things that maybe he saw,
Mm-hmm.
something he heard,
Yes.
something that has been going on in the relationship
Yes.
that
It's
has
been a long-standing thing from what
it's
I've
a
seen and
long-standing thing
heard.
that has been
Yes.
compounded, right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, because I know some women will say, "Oh, excuse me to use my local language here." Now, me,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Do I look like a woman of your caliber?
Class.
If it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't for abroad, would you even have the chance to even speak to me? Some
Yes.
women will say that to you, right?
Yes. Yes.
And we see that all the time, and that goes back to these are men. If you decide that you want to go back home to marry a woman, make sure that you are a high school dropout. Don't go marry a woman that has PhD. There's going to be issues, you know, unequally yoked. You guys are not on an equal playing field. So that issues will keep on compounding, 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 compounding. And then in the end, there's trouble, right? A few weeks ago, there was this incident I forgot what state, I think it was California, between two Nigerian couples where the woman, oh boy, she has doctor in nursing, psychological nurse. She's really heavily educated
Mm-hmm.
and she has very good job. She's also a real estate agent. Like, this woman is epitome of success, right? And similar situation, but not so similar, right? For her, she kicked him out because she was tired of him mooching off her, right? And you know what he said? He said he's going to destroy her life. He's going to destroy her on social media. And true, the man went on social media to destroy the woman, right? Because she was smart enough to put a gap between her and him during that separation, or whatever way the path that she chose forward, right? He was still going out there and doing things to make sure it will lead. He was cyber bullying her. And cyberbullying can also lead to somebody ending up in 6 feet under. All of these things are things that are happening, right? So it's important that we take these things serious. Women, men, community leaders, pastors, wives, talk to the women, see the moods and things that are changing in their life. Don't take the face value of people acting that they are happy. Sometimes when people go to counseling, they're only sharing like 25% of the information that they're sharing with the pastors, right?
Yes.
So it's up to you for you to check the demeanor of what is going on and get to the bottom of how things are happening, right? So it's very, very important. These are conversations that we need to continue to have.
Thank you so much. I'd interject here again and do something that you would normally do. Thank you so much for that. What I wanted to say to everybody here is this, is that if you love me and you know it, and you want to support what we do, two things I would employ or entreat you to do for me. One, please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to the channel. It's also still Sika Educates on YouTube as well. Please, if you love me, you do that for me. Number two, all of us, regardless of whether we're African or Ghanaian or not, we all send remittances to our families back home. So if you do that, please download Tap Tap Send on your phone or your device. And after you've done that, use my promo code, which is AKUSIKA. It's also running down the bottom of the video, and send your remittances to your loved ones, and God will bless you. Thank you so much. Now, another important thing that my sister said in her commentary, and I was itching to say what I had to say here, is that no matter what it is, whether you are in love, head over heels in love with somebody, he's the best thing that happened to you, she's the best thing that happened to you, please, if you haven't heard anything today, understand that you are still an individual in your marriage. You can love your husband or your wife more than sense. He could be the best thing that ever happened to you. He can take you to some places when you do mama and papa that you have never been through in your life before. But don't allow those things to conflict your mind to the point that you're not understanding and recognizing that you're still an individual in your marriage. If you're married to anybody, in a committed relationship with anybody, boyfriend or girlfriend with anybody who really truly cares about you and is a good person, that person loves themselves, but also that person loves you enough to want to seek your progress in your life. Ekuamwa is my sister. She's my Calgary mom. She's my friend. We are both sisters. We love each other. I want to see her make huge strides in her life everywhere, professionally, with her children, everything. And likewise, if you're in a relationship with somebody, a committed one for that matter, marriage. This is marriage, oh, marriage. You're not playing around. You need to make sure that you are seeking your own interest as well as the common good of the people, the two of you in the marriage. Based on the evidence I'm seeing here, I don't know the facts on the ground, but this man honestly speaking, Ekuamwa, if he had money, if he had his own investments there in America, if he was comfortable, had a house or houses that he had let out to tenants, and he had a portfolio, he had anything that he could live for, much as it is painful that your wife, your girlfriend, your dolly, your whatever says they don't want you anymore, my love, you will still jog onto the sunset. And the classic example about this whole thing, there's so many of them, but let's just talk about Bill Gates. Bill Gates is one of the richest people in the surface of this planet. He's divorced. When his wife left him, he had to divvy up his property and she took whatever percentage of it. Has he ended his life? He's still very much happy. In fact, he's probably jogged on into the sunset with that side chick from however many years ago, that he can now have the freedom to do the things that he was hiding to do once a year. He can now openly do it because he still has money. He has assets. And when you have those kinds of things, honestly speaking, you will be sad for 2 days. You may cry for half a day. But because you have money, it doesn't bother you that much. Because if this man was rich in America, please tell me which kind of woman he couldn't possibly afford to have. What kinds of things these other people wouldn't be able to do for him, that he'll still sit around and be worrying about this one who says he doesn't want you. He's not in love with you. You can't force somebody to love you. But because he invested so much, he gave it so much to his own detriment, he lost everything. Guys, I'll tell you something today that I don't like to talk about much. Ekuamwa, you know part of the story. That I've told this story in different facets, different times, that I've had a relative in my family who did exactly what this man did. And part of the reason why it happened was because there was a point in time in her life where she fell in love with somebody. She gave it everything, her life. When this man came into the picture, he ruined everything. Because of this man, this woman wasn't able to work professionally because she worked in the security services in this country that we will talk about maybe one day. And so because of that, because of this marriage, it had cost her everything. She just couldn't see how she was going to be able to pick up the pieces and move on with her life at her age. And I can see a similar trend with this man, because apparently the man is 49-ish and the wife is 50. So he's sitting down and looking at himself and thinking, oh man, I've only got 10 years to retire. What can I possibly do with myself at this age? I've lost everything. So life is therefore not meant worth living anymore. And so the easiest way to do it, very cowardly, but when people are in pain and the chemical imbalances are taking place in the mind and has taken hold, they can't see any light at the end of the tunnel. Trust me, I've been there. I have been with a patient, somebody suffering from this same thing that led this man to this end. So I know it full well. The signs are just out there, right? And so he can't see any way out of this thing. And he thinks his only option is to do what he did. Sadly, focus on your own self. Build up your own self. Yes, you are married, but build up your own self. I'll stop shouting. You take it from here.
Well, this really ties into my very last point that I want to leave with everybody. We need to live a life of purpose. Yesterday I was at one of my friends' mom's funeral, and one of our friends shared about living a life of purpose, right? And one of the things that most of us we think about is most people only have one dream: grow up, get married, have kids. They don't think that those three things are things that actually entails a lot of work. And anything that is work requires effort. And anything that requires effort requires lubrication.
Mm.
And lubrication in these terms is money, right?
Mm.
I will say what I will leave for any man who's listening.
Mm-hmm.
This is what, Honorable Ken always says.
Mm.
He says that as a man, you need to be married to your job.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be married to your job because when you have money, the women who don't like you, they like you, right? And it's all tied into his own way of telling you that as a man, you need to have a purpose. You need to have what makes you and Bruce and makes you who you are as a man.
Mm.
What people will know you for, or what will make build up your ego, like
Mm.
the ego of Bill Gates, like
Mm.
the ego of Kevin O'Leary, like
Mm.
the egos of many all these great men that we see around,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Because when you have a sort of commitment, a sort of purpose as a man, your
Mm.
purpose is transgenerational,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're thinking about how you can build wealth in your family, in the lives of your children, right? So even if anything bad happens to you, you're not sitting around moping and wondering, oh, what did I go wrong? Because you are thinking about how you're going to make your next million, right? You're thinking about how you're going to make your next move for your next your next what do you call it? Your next investment, right? So as a man, your goal and your purpose is important. And you can start that by first being married to your job,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's why they encourage men. If you're not established or you don't have a source of income that is sustainable, you shouldn't get married because marriage in itself is difficult, right? And so you don't need to compound on. The other way, another thing is that women be women of purpose.
Mm.
Don't think that because you're getting married, I'm going to get married to this rich man and then he's going to take care of me because he has money. We take after a while, money can wear off.
Mm-hmm.
And money is one of those things that it does not stick. Money does
Mm.
not stay.
Mm.
It's always flying away. So don't marry someone because of money.
Mm.
Marry that person because you yourself, your purpose is in alignment with that person.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you, the woman, do not have a purpose for yourself, whether it's you want to pursue a higher education or whether you want to build your own business empire, whether you want to be whatever you want to be as a woman, you need to have something that gives you meaning,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this one, if what this man is saying is true, the
Mm-hmm.
other man, he already has his own life, right? So even if it was true, was she going to leave and go and carry that one from the Ghana and bring him to America?
Mm-hmm.
But was that man truly still in love with her?
Mm-hmm.
Or was he just excited to see her because he's not seen her for a long time and they had something and then now they just rekindled for 5 minutes? Meanwhile, he has a committed life somewhere else, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a woman of purpose, if you're a woman who is intentional about where you want to go with your life, some of these things you will not easily become victimized, right? All of us, this is a teachable moment for all of us. It's a teachable moment for all of us. Mothers raising girls, mothers raising boys. Teach your boys purpose.
Mm.
Teach them to aspire to greatness,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Teach them that you know what, as a man, you are the head of your family. You
Mm.
are the provider. That's what God created you to
Yeah.
be the one to provide for your family.
Mm-hmm.
If your wife is there, your wife is a helper. She's not the provider. She is the helper,
Mm.
right? If you want to live peacefully, that's why Jesus said that what a man needs to love his wife as Christ loved the church and laid down his
Mm.
life for it.
Mm. Mm.
Did this man lay down his life
Mm.
for his wife?
Mm-hmm.
No. Was he working in purpose? No. right? So if you understand that there's issues that you need to deal with, whether it's things that got to do with your emotions, things that got to do with your anger, your frustration, and most of these things, all these things, they come out because you don't feel self-sufficient. And the
Yes.
reason why you don't feel self-sufficient because you're not living your purpose,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're not
Mm-hmm.
living your purpose. So it's important that we women too, we understand, you know, a lot of women, you have one child, two child, then you start being lazy. You don't want to go to work anymore. And this abroad, it's not easy.
Mm.
It's not easy. You have to pay bills, right? All those things will start causing
Mm.
friction, right? So many things, and families. I don't want us to take long on this video. Families. Let's see how we also play roles in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's going to change. Stay around. We are praying. God will do it. Sika, you know what I'm talking about
Yeah, of
now.
course.
God will do it. Just be praying for him. Just be praying for her. And meanwhile, somebody, if you don't take care, someone will end up 6 feet under.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not from something that is physical, it
Mm.
might even be something that will bring sickness and diseases to
Yes.
you. BP, right? So families, let's be careful some of the roles we play in such situations perpetrate, and compound on. We are teaching our young men not to be responsible. We need to teach them that they are men of valor, right? And last time I was sharing this, last week Sunday, you know, every man that God called, they were already doing something.
Mm. They were all
Nobody
working.
that God called that they were sitting there lying around doing nothing,
True.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Gideon was out there in the field when God called him
Yes.
to go and save his nation. You know, Deborah was a judge before she was called to lead the people into war. So as a woman, there's nothing that is stopping you from rising to greatness,
Mm.
right? And the
Mm.
same with man, as a man as well. So please, all of these they tie into financial insecurity. All of these, there's so much things that ties into that lead to some of these problems, right? But we want to try. Let's have these conversations. Let's train our boys. Let's teach them about their emotion. If you are having mental problem, you're having situation where you're not so sure, please seek help. Talk to a psychologist. Go for counseling. Don't wait to the last minute. We don't want any more of these things to happen, right? And we pray that God will keep the children,
Mm-hmm.
right? I
Mm-hmm.
pray that, his pillar of fire by night and his cloud by day will keep them, and the Holy Spirit will comfort them because this is very traumatizing,
Mm.
and there's nothing that we can say or do to really rewrite this wrong, but only God is able to bring peace to these children. And Sika, this is all I gotta say because I don't want us to.
Yes. So we're going to drop it here. Everybody has said or made contributions that and points here that are going to help all of us to be better people, to be extra vigilant, and to learn valuable lessons from these things. And this is why we are here week in, week out, day in, day out, is to learn the lessons, not to talk about the stories necessarily, but the valuable lessons. Ikuamwa, thank you so much for all your insights, your commentary, your comments, your words of advice and encouragement, motivation to be better people here. I want to thank everybody who made time for us too. My sister Tanya, Pastor Patience, our brother Gabriel, those who are watching that we haven't even seen because they haven't really said anything, but we know you're there watching. We love every single one of you. One last time, please, please, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It is also called Sika Educates, just like it is on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. And please don't forget to use the promo code AKUSIKA as your code when you're using TapTapSend. If you haven't downloaded it, do that. And then use that to send your remittances to your loved ones back home. We love you. Thank you so much for being here. It's a tragic story, but it's the lessons that we want to learn here. We take it, we move on, and become better, seasoned people to live a life of purpose. I love you all so much. Thank you so much, Ikuamwa. God richly bless you. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Please don't forget to share. Share it. Share it. So that we can reach more people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.